Welcome back, dear listeners. We have peeled back the layers of blockchain and law with our guest Nirav Bakshi in the first part of our podcast. If you haven't listened to that episode, you can find the link for the same somewhere in the description. Now I hope you have got your coffee refilled and your legal muscles all stretched out, because we are going to dive even deeper into the crypto world today. For people who were lucky enough to listen to the first part, I don't know about you guys, but I'm dying to hear what insights Nirav has in store for us. So Nirav, welcome back to our podcast. And without wasting any time, let me ask you a fun question. So imagine that you are an AI and you are asked to create an image of blockchain plus lawyer. What would you come out?
With the things that are going around right now, I would think somebody with like an 80s rock star kind of look, with like wayfarers and like with a shirt buttoned down with a like somewhere around there, and like streak blonde hair sort of a thing, and like walking around with an iPad trying to pretend to do some work. Yeah, I think that's
all this. So where's blockchain is all this? The lawyer has to represent blockchain as well somehow.
No, but that attire that he has to adorn to win over clients who are in the blockchain space is him saying blockchain. Because honestly speaking, like a blockchain lawyer's work in that sense is not very different from a typical lawyer, like I think, right? Because I've spoken to so many law firms now in the US, France, and Singapore. They're all very typical people. It's just everybody just trying to grapple and to understand what it is and how it works.
Right.
Like, for a lack of a better word, to say it in Hindi, sab tukka maar, to be honest.
Yeah, see, that's what happens when the field is new. The professionals are learning on the job. Now, if a new law comes in, they are not going to go back to the law school and like say, "Mujhe fir se padhao," right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's true. Like even when you look at something like AI apps in India, right? Like for the longest time, nobody knew what anybody was doing. Like everybody was just like setting up funds and copy pasting how vehicles were being set up in the US or Singapore for that matter. And for the lack of a better word, cheapoing it in India. Until SEBI came and like started cracking down on those kind of structures, and they were like, look, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And yes, that can be termed as not being investor friendly, or that can be termed as not being GP friendly. But at the end of the day, I think SEBI was at the same time also learning the regulations hand in hand with the industry. So yeah, I understand like what's happening and how it's happening. And unfortunately, we keep saying that India has, like no regulations on crypto, or has barely any regulation on crypto. The only option they know how to do is like ban stuff. But like it's pretty much like that every other place in the world. It's no better. Nobody has real robust regulations on crypto. Like, either there are regulatory sandboxes or there is some guidance. There is no codified law on crypto in most places in the world right now. And you can't have, because there's new things happening every day. How much will you codify?
Right. So again, my follow-up question to that would be, what do you think is the role of a lawyer in those kind of companies who are like on the cutting edge of technology and regulation is just around the corner? How do you mitigate risk in such a scenario?
I mean, to an extent, I would think you can't, because you can't predict what's going to happen. You can prepare for the worst.
So far, until unless AI develops that well.
Correct, absolutely. And even then you'd need that AI to tap into the minds of all the ministers and sort of give you some sort of answer. But like even like, yeah, that's like very far out. But yes, a lawyer's role in that sense would be to be very well read in terms of what the countries which are similar to the country where the company is incorporated is doing, and sort of guide or steer the company in a way where even if regulations were to come up tomorrow, you are likely to be either insulated or you're likely to be able to adapt to the regulations fairly quickly. Like GDPR, I think, was a classical example, right? Everybody saw it coming. And now every single country in the world, even though GDPR is applicable only to Europe, starts gearing or changing their privacy policies in a manner which are GDPR compliant, because everybody knows that nothing is going to go beyond GDPR. Well, India might be an exception where it might just go beyond GDPR. Because India is just very atypical like that. That's the best you can honestly do in this space. You can't go beyond that from a regulatory angle. But other than that, the job of a lawyer in these companies is going to be very typical in terms of like vetting contracts, checking investment documents and things like that. So in that sense, there's nothing different. But yeah, anticipation of regulation is very important. That's something that even I sort of look at when we are investing in portfolio companies where they are based. But is it likely to run afoul of any regulation that may come? And if it does, then it directly impacts our position in that company, because it may have to move. And this could be in a very non-blockchain angle also. Like I'll give you an example. There was a company we were looking at, was based out of Germany. And the German regulations changed on carbon credit, for example. Nothing to do with blockchain at all. But the company we were investing in had some sort of dealings to do with carbon credits through a blockchain. They had to shut down in Germany. They had to move out, right? Because the law changed and the law sort of required so such companies that are dealing in carbon credits to have a broker's license over there. Now that's completely like out of left field, like you can't anticipate, and there has nothing to do with blockchain. So I think in that sense, it's very typical, and this can happen in any industry. Like it's nothing new that lawyers don't deal with. So in that sense, I don't think there's anything extra that people would need to be prepared for. But yes, the pace at which it will get deployed when it gets deployed will be very rapid.
Because you talked about staying updated, not just on law, but also the pulse of the country. And in global companies, the pulse of countries the startup is operating in.
Correct.
In this context, I wanted to ask this question because all the corporate counsels that I know, either they are overworked or they are really overworked. So how do you get time, right? How do you get time to read Wall Street Journal?
So I think that's where more than anything else, the time management comes into play. Like I've been lucky enough because I work across so many jurisdictions because our focus in Asia and Middle East is fairly limited in that sense. We're more North America and Europe sort of centric in the way we make investment. I have a little bit of and I think everybody does have a little bit, I would say 2 to 3 hours of free time somewhere in the middle of the day. I get that time between 2 to 5 p.m. in India time. So I just end up cutting off all my browsers and emails and everything and all, keeping my phone aside for those 2 to 3 hours. I have a calendar block for every day for those 2 to 3 hours to just go and read stuff. Because that's the only way I'm going to be able to do it. If you're in a more traditional setup where you are sort of at your desk in the office all the time, like I work remotely when I'm in India and I work like from the office when I'm in Malaysia or Singapore. If you're in a more typical sort of setup with lack of a better word, interference, I would think a lot of Indians are guilty of doing this in that we don't use the calendar that we have in our software very optimally. And I've seen people respect calendars in India, but because it's never used optimally, people just abuse it. And so if you really set off time and block off time to do these things, I think it's possible to do. Yes, it does take an extra an hour, 2 hours of work, but at the end of the day, that 2 hours over a couple of days just compounds over time, right? It's just a compounding effect, much like anything else. So I think that's the only way to stay updated. I don't think there's a good substitute. The substitute is go on ChatGPT, type a few things and you'll get your answers. But again, I don't know how reliable that is going to be in the long run.
Great advice there. And Nirav, one of the things that attracted or influenced our decision to invite you on the podcast is that you had a slightly different background before becoming a lawyer. So do you think that kind of influenced how you look at law? Or do you run into people after meeting whom you believe, right, guys, they think about the way the law should work is completely different from me? Or legal education makes everyone think like a single unit? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no. So I absolutely agree that, like having come from a little bit of an eco-finance background, and I want to say this, with a little bit of pride in that sense, that it did give me an edge over my contemporaries in the sense of how I think. Because a lot of lawyers I have seen are a little, I would think, conservative in the way they approach things, and the interpretation always taken basis what the black letter law is. Only once you get a certain degree of experience, you're able to sort of take those aggressive calls because you've seen enough at that point, right? The pragmatic approach where we say is missing, I would think, for the first 5 years of most lawyers' careers. And this is, I'm saying globally, not just India. So in that sense, when I started looking at deals, because I was looking at deals from a commercial sense and a legal sense, I could actually make that argument in my head before the client could tell me that, look, this deal is economically or commercially critical for me, you need to make it work. I would already be doing things to make it work. So in that sense, yes, I think like coming from a little bit of a different background, which does, yes, prolong your education by a couple of years, can become helpful because it shortens your career path by, I would think, a few years. Honestly speaking, I don't think I would be able to become a GC if I had not done my eco-finance degree, because it gave me that sort of edge when I spoke to the partner in my interview, and I could present that, look, I'm thinking of things in a multifaceted way than just a unilaterally legal way, which only comes with experience. If you haven't had education in that background, it's always going to come with experience. People don't understand nuances of deals overnight. And this is obviously the problem of how law firms are also structured. The first 2 to 3 to 4 years of your job, you're just unfortunately doing diligence. You're never really like sent to do contracts. You don't know how to negotiate. You've never spoken to a client in your life. So how do you understand nuances? How do you understand commercials? You're never going to do it. I was lucky enough that from my time at Gero Merger and Partners to my time at BLC, my seniors had confidence enough in me to throw me in front of the clients, I would literally think from my second week.
You definitely had amazing seniors there then.
Yeah, and obviously like, the size of the firm also matters, right?
Right.
For me, it was a conscious decision to work with those firms because of their size, because I knew I would get the exposure, because I knew where I wanted to go at the end of the day.
Right. I'm guessing that you're a firm believer that young lawyers should always start with small law firms rather than the big ones.
I mean, see, there's never going to be enough small law firms to accommodate the number of lawyers. Like, I think it needs to be what your goal is. And I'm a firm believer of the fact that, yes, goals do change over time, but you need to have an underlying goal when you get into something. For me, the goal was to have some sort of balance in my life and at the same time be extremely good at what I'm doing. I never had aspirations, honestly speaking, like never to become a partner or anything like that in a law firm. I knew I'm not cut out for that. I know it's too much work and I don't think like I'm that good at business development to get those kind of clients. To put it very candidly, there was not something that I ever aspired to be from the start. So that's why, like for me, if partnership was not something that was after, for me, it didn't really matter too much beyond the point where I worked. So that was like, I will work at a place where I'm able to learn the most. And GMP, absolutely, I learned a lot under Samir and Vishnu. Like, I'm still in touch with them. In fact, met them out in Mumbai last time, and like it was great. My stint at Bombay Law Chambers was, I don't know if you've spoken to Karan or something or not, one of the best people to possibly work with. And at his level, he's guide you to like how deals are done and not necessarily why a deal should and cannot be done. Yes, that comes with it, but you'll actually learn business. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's important.
That's also important. So again, I'll ask the controversial question. In a corporate counsel, what do you think is more important, the law or the business?
I think you need to be able to balance both, right? Because if you just look at business, right, you will be as blindsided as many other people in the field, right? Many other people on the investment side of things or in the business side of things, right? Where it will always be like, for a lack of a better word, I'll say sale, right? Like that's what matters. But you need to be grounded in the fact that if something looks too good to be true in terms of a deal, it most likely is. Like there is some problem, right? So you need to dig a little bit deeper. And without naming people, like I've had people come and tell me that, Nirav, like the issues you bring up, I sometimes feel like punching you in the face because we can't do the deal. But my answer to that is, it's my job.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But if I was only looking at business, I would possibly not see those. And at the end of the day, if tomorrow something does go wrong, nobody's going to go after the business guys. They're going to go after legal. What were you doing?
Exactly.
It's his job to get the close, but it's your job to ensure that it's closed correctly.
Right. But if you just look at the law, then you'll be as good as an external counsel.
I mean, if you're only looking at the law, right, then everybody's going to look at you as the person who's always creating problems.
Right.
So it has to be a very fine line. And I think more than understanding business, a role of the corporate counsel becomes, again, for a lack of a better phrase, client management. I'm saying clients because that's how it is. It's not client management. It's senior management or partner management or what you want to call it. You effectively have to manage people at the end of the day. And how you put it also is critical, right? You can't be like, no, and be arrogant about it because you feel that you have some power. You need to put it across like that. It can't be like that. You have to be a little bit soft-handed in your approach and, try to explain things. It's not like the business people are not willing to listen to you. It's just that it needs to be put correctly.
Great advice there. And as we are running out of time, I'll ask just one last question, right?
Sure.
My question is that, as a lawyer, you're working in many jurisdictions. Any special insights that you noticed, like, somebody who aspired to be a corporate counsel should know?
In terms of exposure to jurisdictions or...
Right. Yeah. Because you have...
Yes, I would...
exposure to a lot of jurisdictions in your work. So for young lawyers who, aspire to be like you, any special tips and tricks about the learnings that you have learned through, your travel?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the biggest one would be appreciate India, I would say. I mean, I don't want to say this and, and sound some sort of patriot or something like that, but it's not the point. But I think we underappreciate our country at a lot of points because now having dealt with Europe, you won't believe the kind of stuff or how difficult it is to do business in that region. It's disgustingly tough. Like, in fact, we're thinking about having a fund mandate where we're saying we're not going to invest in certain European countries. Okay, but we don't have that for India because it's just stupid. The laws are like completely draconian over there.
Okay.
Like the education that you get in India is more than enough for you to equip you to deal with, I would think, 70% of the world. Pay special attention to classes that you do. I've done the 3-year LLB, so I would think pick the second or third year of your 5-year program.
Right.
Pay attention to those classes, right? Because those are the ones that teach you interpretation. Those are the ones that teach you jurisprudence. Those are the ones that teach you contracts, which is jurisdiction agnostic, right? You're able
Correct.
to then pick up on those things and build on that. Continue reading, I would think. And after you know a couple of jurisdictions, like I worked in the UK, I studied in India, I worked in India. While I was studying in India, I went to Australia to do an internship. Now I am sort of working in a situation where I'm dealing with so many jurisdictions. After a point, I realized it's all the same, right? It's all the same. Like contract remains contract, no matter what you do. But indemnity will remain an indemnity, no matter what you do. So as long as your fundamentals are strong, you're going to be able to conquer any jurisdiction you want. Yes, you may not be able to practice there, get a job in a law firm there, maybe, right? But you're equipped enough and knowledgeable enough to be able to at least hold a conversation. Like today, I can easily hold a conversation with a lawyer from the US. I don't have to pass the bar in New York and California to do that or to prove myself, right? It's just about being interested, learning, and, getting the fundamentals strong. If your fundamentals are strong, there's nothing and nobody in the world that can shake you.
Right. Wow. Great insights there. So as far as my understanding goes, you are in Singapore right now.
I'm in Malaysia right now because we have a small setup in Malaysia because Malaysia and Singapore are the same time zone. That's why I said it.
Right.
So I'm in Malaysia right now. I actually go to Singapore on Tuesday for a couple of conferences. Then I'm back in Malaysia and then I go back to India.
So what's the best place to visit in Malaysia according to you?
Depends what you want to do. If you like Asian food, I would think like Din Tai Fung is a great restaurant to go to. I think it's amazing. Another great place to go to in Malaysia, I mean, Langkawi is great actually. It's a pretty underrated beach spot. Malacca is a great place to go to in Malaysia. It's like a little bigger version of Pondicherry in a way. If I was to draw a comparison to India. But yeah, these are the few places you can definitely visit. And yeah, you have typical Petronas stars and everything that you want to see. You have the tourist charm, but nothing great over there. But yeah, Malaysia is pretty cool. The food's phenomenal here.
So I always wanted to visit Malaysia, haven't happened so far. But thanks for the tips and thanks for coming on the podcast, even though you're traveling. Have a safe journey to Singapore. Nirav, thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, Avinash. Thanks for having me.
It was completely our pleasure. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Good night.
And that's a wrap on the part 2 of our conversation with Nirav Bakshi. We hope you enjoyed diving deeper into the world of blockchain, venture capital, and law with our esteemed guest. Nirav's insight have truly expanded my understanding of ever-evolving legal landscape around crypto. I can't wait to see what groundbreaking ventures he embarks on next. And to all of our listeners, thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey. Subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking discussions like this. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep discussing.